So tell us about what this study involves and what the key findings were.
Yeah, g'day Ros. This study done by the ANU is probably the most prominent and long-running study of voter behaviour in Australia. Every election since 1987, these researchers have gone out and asked a long list of questions of lots of voters, trying to get not just at how people voted, but why they voted the way they voted, what issues were important to them, and then they publish all of that and release all of the data to the public. There is a lot of information in this. There's volume 1 of the report, here's volume 2. There's a lot in here, Ros, but it paints a picture and it shows us some of the many long-term trends that are affecting all parties in the Australian Parliament and those that are not. You know, the fact that voters are more volatile than they used to be, voters are less attached to political parties, some of the generational changes in voting patterns that are emerging where younger voters are not drifting rightward as they age in the same way that previous generations did. So there's long-term trends that are being examined here, but also a long list of short-term issues and a particular list of challenges for the Liberal Party and the Coalition, helping explain why it is that they were defeated so resoundly in May. First of all, a very deeply unpopular leader. Peter Dutton has been found in this study to be the least liked major party leader since this study commenced in 1987, nearly 40 years ago. The gap in likeability and popularity between Peter Dutton and Anthony Albanese is the largest that this study has ever recorded. Obviously, Peter Dutton's not the leader of the Liberal Party anymore, but there are ongoing challenges still for the Liberals that this study outlines. And the key one of the big ones, is this almost an existential issue around what policies are the core strengths of the Coalition. For a very long time, we would have said it's a political adage that the management of the economy, issues around taxation, that is Liberal Party strength. And it has been true. It's been something that voters have believed for a very long time, until 2025. We had this campaign where the Coalition was campaigning to repeal a tax cut that Labor had introduced in the budget. We had a Labor Party that had, not had any particularly large major blunders in terms of economic management in recent times in its first term. And what we have seen is where the Liberal Party used to have a commanding advantage on topics like management of the economy, now the Coalition is in the negatives, and that is a real challenge for the party to think through. And we're seeing in real time now, including with Ted O'Brien at the National Press Club this afternoon, how the Coalition is attempting to reframe itself to try and regain that economic credibility that this research is telling us quite clearly it lost in May.
Yeah, so now that the Liberals have lost that advantage on economic management, how easy is it to win it back?
Well, that's the big question. And conventional wisdom would say it's much easier to damage your reputation on some of these issues than it is to rebuild it. And so it could be, more than a short-term project for the Coalition to do that. We're seeing how the Coalition is framing its climate policy, its decision to scrap the net zero by 2050 policy, more as a cost of living, power prices issue to try and kind of regain the front foot on some of these economic and cost of living issues. We've heard from Ted O'Brien making the case today around bracket creep and other topics. But what this study being released today has found is of the 10 policy areas that the ANU researchers have looked at, Labor had the preferred set of policies on 9 of them. The Coalition only had the advantage over Labor on national security. And the researchers, and that was not a particularly high salience, high importance issue in this May federal election. And the researchers say that domination, the fact that Labor had the preferred set of policies in 9 of 10 policy areas, that is unprecedented in the history of this study, and that is a real challenge for the Liberal Party. They at the moment, don't really have anything they can point to as their core strength if they're looking to rouse support, if they're looking to frame issues on their terms. Well, they don't have many issues to use the political parlance, they don't have many issues that they own at the moment. And so how do they find those issues back? How do they regain that credibility? It might be easier said than done now that they've lost it.
And Casey, you mentioned Peter Dutton's deep unpopularity. How does he rank compared to other political leaders?
Yeah, Peter Dutton has been found. So basically this survey since 1987 has asked voters to rank leaders of all major parties and on a scale from 0 to 10, 0 being most disliked, 10 being most liked. And Peter Dutton has had the lowest average rating by quite some margin. The second lowest rating was Scott Morrison 3 years earlier in 2022. Go back to the fourth lowest rating on record, and that's Bill Shorten in 2019. There is a little bit of a pattern where more recent political leaders tend to have lower popularity ratings than the leaders of the 90s, who are much higher on that list. Kevin Rudd in 2007 has recorded the highest ever rating in this study, and there is a bit of a trend line there that more modern, as we've moved through time, political leaders have got less popular. Now, whether that's because voters are expecting more of our leaders than we were in the 90s, whether it's because they are genuinely, seen as less competent these days, there's a bit of research to be done there, I think, around exactly why that is. But the general trend that we don't like our politicians as much as we used to is definitely holding. That is notwithstanding, this is a very poor result for Peter Dutton, who's obviously left the parliament, was defeated in his seat. Voters did not rate him as a particularly charismatic or inspiring leader, and that was a definite contributor to their election defeat.